tchCon sanctioned.
Right, right.
Well, then you might have questions actually, because we answered a bunch yesterday. But if you didn't hear them, then fire away.
Well, how do you get into voice acting, and how did the major studios go about casting a game like Borderlands 2?
Well, definitely two different questions. I got into voice acting just by virtue of knowing somebody. I went to college for acting. I've been acting since I was 12, but when I came back to Dallas to make money before moving to New York or LA or wherever I was going to go, I met Laura Bailey, who was already working for Funimation, and we got to be friends. So she brought me up to the studio to kind of introduce me, and I got an audition just by being in the room. And honestly, I know a lot of people who get into Funimation by knowing somebody who's in Funimation, which is not obviously what people want to hear, but it's true. Fans can get into Funimation though by getting on the general audition list. You have to sign up with the talent coordinator at Funimation, and at every few months, sometimes every 6 months, they'll call people in, get them to do just a general audition, and if you pass that, if you get the interest of the director who's holding them, then they'll usually call you in for a couple of bits or Walla or whatever. Walla is with all actors. It's like 3 or 4 people in a booth doing crowd noises. For Borderlands, for games like that, Borderlands actually relied on Chris Sabat's studio, if you know Chris Sabat. Chris Sabat plays Armstrong in Full Metal Alchemist, Vegeta and Piccolo in Dragon Ball Z, and he owns his own studio in Dallas, and he does a lot of video games there. So Borderlands was actually cast at Okratron, and that's why you see so many Funimation people in it, because all of Chris's friends are Funimation people, so it is a very easy, quick to call in. There are auditions there for something like Borderlands. It's just 1 or 2 people are called in to audition rather than 10.
Well, I mean, it's a sensible thing. How long does it take to record all the dialogue for a game like that?
A few weeks. I would say 3 or 4 weeks, and then you're always going to have people coming back in for pickups, and that happened for months afterwards. They changed the dialogue in some way, and we'd come back in and get it again.
So how much of the story do you actually get to see as a voice actor?
Almost none of it. I only see what I'm about to read. I'm lucky if I get to see the lines between my lines, because a lot of times your lines are in just a table, a grid, so it's just my line, my line, my line, my line. And if you want to see the ones in between that lead up to your line, they have to go hunting for them. So it can be a little bit difficult to piece together a conversation. You just have to trust your director.
So that's kind of cool. I mean, all the stuff around Roland's death, I thought a lot of that was pretty good in Borderlands 2 and well executed. I didn't necessarily agree with the story decision to kill Roland off. I thought that was a bit gratuitous, but I thought that, from a performance perspective, the different actors that had something to say about it did it pretty well.
Good. Then that's a testament to the director.
And so, what do they? You just get to see your lines, and then what do they tell you? These characters are former lovers, and you've got to put that into it.
That's exactly what they tell you. Yeah, they give you a little bit of a backstory on the relationship with the character, and then say they died and how they died, and what exactly your character is seeing at the moment. And sometimes they don't even tell you that much. Sometimes you just read the line and it tells you what's going on.
Fair enough.
Because they haven't animated the game until after you've voiced it, you have a little bit of freedom there.
Yeah, I can see the voicing would always have to come first.
Yeah, that's not obviously the case with dubbing, so
yeah,
that's a very different thing.
They've gotten a lot better at dubbing.
Yes,
I remember
they have.
growing up and watching Speed Racer, and I was like,
Yep.
that was bad.
Even Funimation's first attempts were bad, but yeah, everybody's gotten a lot better at it. Funimation's gotten really, really good at it.
What's it like to dub?
It's very technical sort of acting. You have to concentrate in 3 different ways all at the same time. You've got to be emotionally engaged acting. You have to be reading the script, which is on one monitor, and you have to be watching the video on another monitor and trying to match the script to the video. So it's a very technical form, not organic, not natural form of acting, and it's sometimes more fun because of that. It's kind of like putting a puzzle together. I enjoy it. Not everybody does. Not all actors can dub. Anything else? I'm here just for you guys, it looks like, so. If you have anything, you're more than welcome.
So on the big voice jobs, how much, outside of the Walla segments and things like that, how much do you actually get to interact with the other people that are gonna be in the same scene?
Almost none. I am friends with all the voice actors, but that's largely through directing. When we're in the booth alone almost all of the time, unless, like you said, you're doing Walla. So I don't ever see the actors except when I'm on my way out or on my way in. As a director, I see them all the time.
Is that part of the technical challenge? Do you get to hear their lines ever so you know how to play off of them?
It is a part of the technical challenge. It totally depends on who's recorded first, really. Because somebody has to go first, and whoever it is who's gone first is going to be the only person in. They're recording into a vacuum. Sometimes as a director, I would try to make it somebody who was really good, because they would be able to carry the conversation in their heads, know how somebody else was going to respond, know how a conversation might escalate or an argument might escalate, so they would get bigger and bigger. Newbies tend to stay a little flat, not knowing how somebody else would respond in their head. But then the last person to record has everything in it, so the last person's pretty lucky.
So do they play that all for you if you're fortunate enough to be last?
Yeah, they'll put everything in. And hopefully sometimes, most of the time, you have your music and sound effects in as well. But we get the music and sound effects from Japan already fully made. And so if we don't have those materials from Japan yet, then you're really just recording into a vacuum. It's just you. You can't even hear where the music swell is going to be, or if I bonk somebody on the head, I don't hear the bonk. And that's almost harder to me than not having dialogue in.
In your voice direction roles, how difficult has it been in some of the performances to kind of transition from the just raw translated script to something that's a little bit more colloquial for English audiences?
We actually have people who do that, so that's not the director's job. We have ADR scripted actors, and you'll see their names on the credits as they go by, and that just means they took the translation and they, like you said, colloquialized it or turned it into speakable English and made sure that it matched the flap. So if they took something that it took the Japanese a very short time to say, and it takes us a very long time to say it, then they might need to finagle so that the character says it within 2 lines of dialogue that are on screen. So they have to make sure that there's a pause where there needs to be a pause. Sometimes there's more backstory that goes into the lines where they're off screen because we need the extra time. Whatever it is, they figure it out. And we just hope that they were good at their job, because directors really, really need those writers.
Have there been any that were kind of a challenge to work on?
Absolutely, and especially in the beginning. It takes a long time to learn how to do that. Successfully, anyway. And John Bergmeyer, our head writer, who does a lot of checking over of everybody's stuff, is very particular, and he's very good at his job. And he has lead writers like Monica Rial and Bonnie, my sister, and Michael J. Tatum and Jamie Markey, and they have teams under them who write and then turn it into them, and they check everything over, and then they turn it into John, and he checks everything over. So the hope is that it's really good by the time it gets to you, but it moves so quickly, there's just no way to fix everything. So yeah, sometimes scripts are rough.
Is that like how you get the power goes to 9,000 thing from Dragon Ball Z.
That was more of an old school, it happened because that was done before we had this system in place. I mean, Dragon Ball Z was recorded, that's the first thing Funimation ever did. And it was recorded with writers who didn't really know how to do this medium. They figured it out, and some of them turned into our very best writers, but nobody knew how at that time. And nobody knew really the fan base. Nobody was in contact with the fan base, so you don't know what fans are looking for. They, for instance, were trying to go more for laughs and on the cartoony side than for actual trying to stay close to the Japanese, which when they went back in and did Dragon Ball Z Kai, they got the opportunity to do that. They could fix a little bit of that, and I think they did. So that was more just a result of early days.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you're working on something like Full Metal Alchemist, can you feel that it's going to be something special that's really going to resonate with the fan base?
Sometimes, and with that one, yes. When Mike and I were directing that, we knew fairly early on that it was going to be big, and it does put a little bit of pressure on you to be very vigilant in whatever you're doing. But by the same token, I want everything I do to be good,
Yeah.
so it's not like I try less. I just worry less, probably. And then sometimes you have no idea. There have been things, Black Butler is big, and I had no idea.
Yeah, my other daughter is a huge Black Butler fan,
You never know. You never know what's going to resonate.
yeah.
Yeah, I seem to be like the only one of my friends who's a big One Piece fan. So
Yeah?
I'm like, what are you talking about?
That one resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah.
We knew One Piece was going to be big. Yeah. That's one of those shows you just have to get into.
Yeah, I mean, like, it comes off as kind of cartoony and
Right.
comedic, and then if you get invested in it, then all of a sudden the drama comes.
That's exactly right.
And it hits you, where you didn't expect.
Right. You thought it was just going to be fluff, and all of a sudden you're crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Full Metal Alchemist has that effect on a lot of people too. You've got a lot of that. There's a lot of that comedic stuff and all the stuff they do visually with Armstrong. I mean, it's gotten to be well known and almost kind of cliche, unfortunately. But I don't think that detracts any from it, really.
Yeah, but from the very first episode of Full Metal, you get the drama. You get the drama. You know that there's darker things at play. And with One Piece, it's a little bit more bubblegum at the beginning, and you have to, like you say, invest in order to find the drama, to find what's going on behind all the bubblegum.
I love seeing what's happening with it because I grew up on Transor Z and Robotech and all that stuff, and for all of this stuff to be so huge and for my kids to be horribly into it and all of that. I mean, not horribly. For people to be as involved and invested in it, for there to be so many choices. I mean, everything. You've got such a gamut of things, and I especially the way Harmony Gold was like terrified of actually presenting the Japanese side of it way back in those days, and how people have gotten to just be kind of okay with a lot of the original Japanese art and get really offended when they remove it.
Yeah.
I think that's a testament to what's been happening in the industry, and it's a wonderful thing to see.
For the most part, I think the big studios have decided to ignore the mass market. They're not trying to turn it into something every kid is watching on a Saturday morning, for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And they've realized that the market, where the money actually is the niche, the people who really love the Japan part of anime.
Have any of your interactions with fans changed the way you approach a character or an upcoming project?
Most of the time when I meet or when I talk to fans about a certain project, it's when it's long gone, because I can't talk about projects until after they're out almost, or at least they've been announced. So I guess it doesn't really have time to affect the way I'm going to play the character. That's different when it comes to something that's long running, like Fairy Tail or One Piece. because volumes have come out, and I can go back, but by the time I get a chance to talk about it, I'm already pretty fully involved, even with Luffy. So, no, not really, I guess. It might change the way I see it or think about what I did, or like I might have hated something I did and it turns out that's the most popular thing that happened in that volume. So things like that have happened, but for the most part, no. You just kind of have to trust your director that they were guiding you in the right direction in the first place. Can't go around changing your opinion without the director's permission. You were joining me at 9 o'clock in the morning. Okay. All right. Our next panel is with Richard and Steve in this room. Alrighty, it was nice talking to you guys.
Yes,
Thank you.
very much.